I decided to make myself a Christmas dress this year, so I pulled a pattern from my stash that I'd made once before. Last time I made the wing collar version, but this time I chose the sweetheart neckline to make it a little dressier. I started out by tracing my bodice pattern pieces onto sturdier paper, and then I made the necessary alterations based on my measurements and what I thought needed to be done. I believe that what I did would be called a full bust adjustment, but I haven't researched, so I'm not actually positive. I did a quick bodice mock-up using an old bed sheet, but I was still so nervous about cutting into my beautiful new fabric. The fabric I used was this really pretty green cotton velveteen. I chose it because I wanted something festive like velvet, but a little less formal. Also, any affordable velvet that I've seen tends to be made of polyester or other synthetic fibers which really don't breathe. I find them very irritating against my skin, so cotton velveteen was my ideal affordable choice. I decided to mirror the sweetheart neckline in the sleeves by cutting a little scallop into them and then facing it. I had used this technique once before on a blouse and I loved the way it turned out, so I thought it would be a perfect time to use it on my Christmas dress. After stay stitching my neckline, which the pattern doesn't say to do, I sewed all of my bodice darts. I never backstitch at the tip, but sew right off the end and tie the thread by hand because it makes the dart bubble a little bit less. Once I pressed my darts and sewed the shoulder seams, it was time for every sewist's favorite step, setting in the sleeves. I actually don't mind it all that much. I prefer to do it at this stage though in most garments rather than after the side seams are sewn. To me, it's just way easier to work with. I then sewed the side seams and set to work on my bodice lining. For the lining fabric, I chose a lovely green silk charmeuse. Again, most affordable lining fabrics are made from synthetic fibers, but I really dislike having those against my skin, and I found a fairly affordable real silk option, so I went with that. The lining usually comes together a little bit faster than the actual bodice because with the lining you don't actually have to stitch the darts in place, you can kind of make pleats instead for most of them. I sewed my bodice facing in around the neckline and then added my bodice lining. I wasn't really sure what the best method would be for lining this kind of sweetheart bodice where the front is in two pieces, but this worked okay. I graded my seam allowance and understitched the neckline, another step which this pattern omits, and then I settled in for an evening of hand sewing my facings to the lining. A good movie is invaluable at a time like this. I had only been able to work on this dress in small sections since I had started it, and it was beginning to feel like it was taking forever, so I was quite excited to finally be able to work on the skirt. I feel like once you get to the skirt, the whole dress goes way faster. My deadline was also getting kind of close. I had chosen to make this dress to wear to my husband's work Christmas party, and at this point, I think the party was only like 3 or 4 days away, so I was feeling a little bit of pressure. got to the point of attaching the bodice to the skirt, and then something not so grand happened. I know so much better than to do what I did, but after I sewed one half of the zipper into the side seam, I tried kind of stretching the fabric on the other side to make it lay nicer since it's a curved seam. And can you guess what happened? That's right, it ripped about 3 inches horizontally. So then my game plan had to change quite a bit since I had to first repair the rip and then figure out how to cover it up. I repaired the rip by applying fusible interfacing to the back side, stitching about a 1/4 inch away from the tear all the way around it, and then zigzagging along each side to encase the raw edges. I cannot believe I did that. I thought about it too, like a split second before it happened. I was like, what am I doing? And then rip. Oh well, at least with my fast approaching deadline, I didn't have time to dwell on it for too long. I sewed and inserted the skirt lining, then hand-stitched it to the zipper opening while brainstorming my options for covering up that tear. Thankfully, the tear was right about on the waistline, so I wound up choosing to make a sort of sash out of the few silk scraps I had left. I also made bows from extra velveteen to decorate the waist and neckline. Please excuse my voice as it starts to get a little bit hoarse. I did all of the finishing touches quite last minute on the day of the Christmas party. It was finally time to hem the skirt, and I chose to use black lace hem tape, which is not only practical for curved hemlines, but is also incredibly pretty. Even if no one else sees the pretty inside of my dress, I'll know it's there, and that makes me really happy.